Looking at my watch, you should have been home. Today I regret the night I put that ring on.
How to dress to attract a man, a tutorial. Rule number 1, make sure your hair is always long and lustrous and never put up. Rule number 2, make sure to show a little skin, especially those stems, ladies. Rule number 3, footwear should be dainty and delicate. Rule number 4, show off that waist at all times. Rule number 5, always have a pleasant expression on your face. I promise you will attract a man.
The book I'm reading is absolutely incredible, and it's like literally breaking my brain. The book is The Heat Will Kill You First, Life and Death on a Scorched Planet by Jeff Goodall, who also has a great book on flooding and water and climate change. The first chapter is a story in the science of hyperthermia, which is your body overheating and being basically unable to regulate the heat, and so you like boil alive from the inside. The book explains it incredibly well, but I am struggling to wrap my mind around the fact that hydration doesn't really play a whole role in this. Like, it might prolong your life just a bit, but it won't stop you from dying. The book also goes into the science of what an urban heat island is, which is when a city is warmer than the surrounding area. So like a city could be 20 degrees hotter than the suburbs. Because the heat is trapped in the concrete and the asphalt and the buildings, it basically stays hot overnight. So you have no escape from the heat. As it stands right now, heat deaths kill more people than all other natural disasters combined. This book is so fucking depressing, and
no, fuck that! All you think y'all got me fucked up! Oh my mom!
Some dudes are so fat phobic, they will create fake scenarios where they get to reject fat women. This is embarrassing on so many levels, dude. God! My God!
You've ever been bothered by people making universal claims like, just sit with your discomfort, just sit with your uncomfortable emotions, then this video's for you. 99% of the time, these takes are never for the privilege to sit with their low tolerance for discomfort. It is always, let's ask the most marginalized, the most traumatized, the most oppressed to sit with more of their pain, ultimately so that these other people don't have to. It's always sit with more discomfort and never, here are some resources, some tools, here is access to the things that you need in order to alleviate the constant discomfort that you are in. Or at the bare minimum, offer some relief. And the irony is that survivors of complex trauma, trauma of oppression, have always known how to sit with their discomfort because that's how we have survived this long. But the privileged, the neurotypical, the people sitting on loads of cash, the cis, straight, able-bodied folks, they have no trouble benefiting from our discomfort. Welcome to capitalism.
Listen, I would never force you to read a book, but you'd be doing yourself a favor.
You won't date her because she's white?
I don't mind that she's white. I love white people.
He does. He goes to Kings of Leon concerts. I thought they were segregated.
I just feel like for some reason interracial couples come off as like cringy. You know?
Yeah, it does seem like they care more about the interracial part than the actual relationship.
Yeah, like name a single cool interracial couple.
Tom Holland and Zendaya.
He's Spider-Man. He's honorary black.
Look, the stuff you see online doesn't represent all interracial couples. Plus, you can be different.
You know what? You're right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call her and tell her she's the one.
Yes, kid.
Yeah, who cares if you're cringy, you know? Love is love.
Casey?
How's my little Black Panther?
Oh, never mind. That's cute.
No.
What you mean that you're not gonna be gay past a certain age? So I've been seeing this trend circulate with queer women in masks that at the ripe age of 30, they don't want to be gay anymore. Listen, I cannot wait to be the old queer grandma across the street. I cannot wait to be called the old lesbian with the funky outfit. Bitch, I can't wait. I am going to serve hard as a 40-year-old lesbian. Best believe. Best believe. And honestly, it's sad to see the amount of internalized homophobia. Girl, let me tell you, I love, adore, admire older lesbians. I'm inspired by them. I look up to them. You know, they keep me going. I only met 2 older lesbians in my lifetime, and maybe that's part of the issue. I feel like we fear what we can't see, and there's not a lot of elderly, woman-loving women, queer representation out there, let alone for the masks. I mean, obviously they exist. I mean, it's just not an everyday occurrence. And I think what's special about our generation is that a lot of us are able to come out now. I feel like we will be the representation for the younger generations. Honestly, so beautiful to see lesbians that have lived such a long life. I'm able to see myself living that. And best believe me and my partner will be old lesbians. Listen, I gotta tell the youth about our U-Haul stories. Who else is gonna do it? So catch me at the lesbian bar in 40 years. Still. What you mean that you're not gonna be gay past a certain age?
Okay, because this is so true. This is so accurate. Like, and I've been seeing it all over my FYP lately, especially with the mask. So I'm talking to the mask right now. That's who I want to talk to. Like, I'm just trying to figure out where this internalized homophobia is coming from. And I think that, like, I know this is my girlfriend, but she said it right. Like, I think it is a fear of the unknown, like a fear of things that we don't see often. Because I mean, I feel like I don't really see a lot of older lesbians or older masked people myself, and that lack of seeing something, like, I feel like I don't know what it would look like for me to be that. But either way, like, I feel like I would be grateful to be an older masked person, you know? Like, I don't know, I feel like it's just strange how we're doing that. And even if it is a joke, because I know some people are doing it as a joke, and you know, I don't know. I feel like it's not something that is funny, because that's our existence, you know? Like, we should be proud of our existence, you know? We should have pride in that. And I don't know, I hope that more people would want to celebrate becoming an elderly woman-loving woman, or elderly non-binary person, especially the mask. Like, I feel like we should have more celebration around that. I think it's a beautiful thing to happen. So yeah, no, I 100% agree. So just want to spread the message more.
Officers surrounding him.
Yo, this is absolutely disgusting and happens all the time, everywhere. The police are not here to help anyone, they are only here to protect property, and until they are abolished, none of us are safe. Fuck them.
Sucker, fame fucker, bleed me dry like a goddamn vampire.
Australia allies with the U.S. to protect itself from China. Australia allies with the U.S. to protect itself from the U.S. What? Why? Because of what the U.S. would do to Australia if Australia didn't ally with the U.S. That's absurd. What's absurd is your lack of understanding of the power differential in geopolitics and how that shapes world events, especially alliances. China is a threat to who? What imperial wars has China started in recent memory? What imperial wars has the U.S. started in recent memory? Countries join NATO of their own free will. There is no such thing as free will in geopolitics when you have a global imperial superpower which controls the world finance system and dominates every hemisphere on Earth. Countries join NATO to align themselves with power. If a shopkeeper is smart and wants to keep his business, he will acquiesce, be kind, warm, and accepting to the Godfather, because he understands what the Godfather is capable of.
I am my mother's savage daughter, the one who runs barefoot, cursing sharp stones. I am my mother's savage daughter, I will not cut my hair, I will not lower my voice.
No, because me, I'm beating my kids the second they talk back. Bop, bop, bop. Making Massa proud. What? Making Massa proud. What does that even mean? No, I was just saying, like, you were continuing his family tradition of beating black bodies into submission. No, beating kids is funny. We were all just laughing. I bet you they were beating kids in Africa too before anybody got there. Well, there's actually no historical or anthropological evidence of ritualistic physical discipline in pre-colonial West African societies, so you'd be wrong. Nah, it's not even about all that. Like, they say it's okay to do it in the Bible. You know who else used that defense? Nah. You made it weird. You gotta go. Oh.
Well, I'll just say this. In 30 years, after your children have been born and you've done what you say you're gonna do, and you go to them and you say, why don't you talk to me anymore? And they bring up the fact that you beat them over spilling juice or getting in trouble at school. I want you to remember this moment where you sat here and when you fantasized about your future children, instead of being at their games and recitals, instead of walking them across the stage at graduation or down the aisle, you fantasized about holding them down and beating them. So you can tell them you didn't want to do it. You can tell them you did it out of love. You can tell them it hurt you more than it hurt them. But I want you to remember that you sat here and you fantasized, practically salivating over the very idea of it. And you laughed.
When I say trans men can be lesbians or trans masks can be lesbians or date lesbians, one of the first things people say is usually, okay, well then how do we change the definition of lesbian because it's supposed to be non-men loving non-men? And I would encourage you to think about defining sexuality in the same way that we define gender. 50 years ago, we defined woman as someone with a vagina. Now we realize that language isn't inclusive, so we say anyone who identifies as a woman is a woman, not someone who identifies as a woman and wears dresses to prove it, or someone who identifies as a woman and goes through hormone replacement therapy to prove it. We just assume that if someone uses a label in good faith, that they're probably a woman. The non-men loving non-men label was taken from Tumblr in 2014 as a way to revise the lesbian label to be more inclusive. And the other critique is, well then cis het men can call themselves lesbians. Okay, there are cis men right now calling themselves trans women, and they don't do that in good faith. They do it to get a rise out of us. And it ultimately has no effect on queer people, other than getting conservatives to rally against us. But like, just because a cis man wants to say that he's a trans woman is a gotcha moment, doesn't make trans women identities less real. Just because a cis het man wants to make a joke about him being a lesbian, doesn't mean that trans men and masks are inherently predators and shouldn't be allowed in the lesbian community. And the third critique I get is, well, I'm a trans man or a trans mask and I don't want to be a lesbian or date a lesbian. Great, you don't have to. No one has to date anyone they don't want to date. Lesbians don't have to date non-binary people. Trans people don't have to date cis people. How someone else chooses to identify does not affect you at all.
The simple reality of regretting hormones. Hi, my name is Chris. I used to take testosterone because I thought I was a boy, but turns out I wasn't. I've been looking at a lot of detrans content to make sense out of my experience, but I find that a lot of people I watch, I just can't relate to because a lot of the people are stuck in their resentment, regret phase. And I understand these feelings of, why didn't anyone stop me? Oh, I hate trans people. Oh, I hate the doctors. I regret what I did because I was severely mentally ill. Oh, I didn't know any better, blah, blah, blah. And I'm getting really overwhelmed with the amount of people who are like victim or blame shifting because most people resort to resenting their doctors, the trans community, or even a type of version of themselves that doesn't exist anymore. And I was like, well, I have all of these feelings of regret and resentment, but that's not really how I feel. So it had me thinking about what I actually regret about taking hormones, because I know I don't regret thinking I was trans. I just don't. The regret can actually be boiled down in a few simple words in a way that's like so not toxic and so not like in your own head. I mean, my only regret is that I didn't think about it more. Because I'll admit, I used to be one of those people who glamorized the idea of hormones and being trans, mainly because I related so much to the idea of being disconnected from your own body, like feeling I don't deserve my body, feeling I don't live here, feeling like it's not actually mine. And I always struggled with proving my femininity, so I feel like I kind of resorted to my own concept of masculinity, and I kind of idealized it over time with the infatuation of the idea that I might be trans. At the time, I did kind of live in an echo chamber, because I transitioned during the pandemic era. And I was also not in the best spot mentally, so it was really easy for me to cling on to any idea that made sense in my head. So when I had the idea that I might be trans, I just kind of jumped into it right away. Like, I was so privileged, I was already really androgynous looking, and the only thing I had to work on was my voice, which I could have done with just vocal exercises, etc. But I was so entitled that I was like, no, I have to have the full experience, I have to get hormones ASAP. I didn't even want to go through the process of getting it done through my insurance. I decided to pay for it out of pocket by going to Planned Parenthood in my neighboring state. So realistically, no nobody could have convinced me otherwise, even though I really wish somebody would have. But at the end of the day, I was the one who made the decision. And if I just had thought about it a little bit more, if I just listened to myself, if I listened to my intuition and realized maybe it's something else that's not trans, it's something else, and you don't have to change your body to feel this resolution. If only I had known that beforehand, I feel like I wouldn't be in this predicament. But again, I'm grateful that I got to explore that and experience that, because it was a really humbling experience and it made me realize the fragility of life. Realistic and simple. Regret. Oh well.